Good morning, listeners, and just wishing you a very good Tuesday morning. I hope the start to your day has been relatively good, and I hope that you're feeling calm today and feeling okay. In our last chat, we were talking around being calm, and I equated it to the weather, looking at thunder and lightning as opposed to raindrops, and left you with the challenge of trying to access calmness and tranquility in all situations to allow yourself the opportunity to feel really proud of yourself. And in that, we're going to look at the emotion of anger and actually look at what is anger and how do we understand anger and how does it present itself in its many forms. If we look at what is anger, I once read, and I wish I could remember where because I've read in so many different streams, but it's so true that if you think about anything that you're angry about, the reality is you're actually sad about it. Because anger is sadness with energy. And when you don't have that energy alongside it, and you sit back and you reflect, you're actually quite sad about it. So I want you to think about it. I want you to think about something right now that you're actually very angry about. And I want you to explore that a little bit deeper and look and ask yourself, do I actually feel very sad about that? Okay? Because, and if the energy were to wane in me and I were to feel totally low, would that make sense? That the thing that I'm getting so worked up about and so angry about is actually something that I'm feeling really sad about. Okay? So if we look at what anger is very common in depression. And the reason why is because, as I mentioned, it's sadness with energy. It's very common with disappointment, and disappointment often can spill over into a depression, and often that disappointment can be towards yourself or towards someone else. If we think about marriages that break up, and we think about infidelity, that is a significant disappointment in your partner, somebody that you've committed to spend your life with, that behaves in a way that you had not expected. That is a major and massive disappointment that will impact the rest of your life. So we think about the anger that comes with that and the pent-up emotion you can feel, but if we really look at that, that's the hurt and the sadness that's actually resonating there. And I'd be very interested in hearing some of your stories, if any of you would like to share kind of your experiences of anger and your journey with anger and your process with anger. Remember to just email me, jt.therapy@gmail.com. Okay, so anger is often related to feeling frustrated, feeling blocked, feeling ignored, feeling criticized, and it often feels like there might be an obstacle that needs to be overcome. Okay, it can be felt as powerlessness, okay, and it can be directed inwards, so you can be harming yourself in different ways, or it can be directed outwards in harming others. So when we think about that too, you can think about eating disorders, which are so complex and so hard to resolve. And often that can come from a harming of yourself or a harming of somebody close to you, trying to punish somebody else by seeing the pain that it's causing them in doing this to yourself. Okay, so if we look at what triggers anger, there's a number of things that trigger anger usually. Okay, and usually it's related to some kind of threat or damage or block to things that we personally value. So if we think about kind of yourself or kind of your self-esteem, when we think about if you lose someone, there we go. That's damage or a block to your relationship with that person because that person's no longer going to be around. If we see somebody has done something to hurt us, that can also be another damaging sense of anger. Okay, we can also see anger in terms of frustration, right? Wanting to achieve things and something's blocking that achievement, and your frustration because you want to get it done in a certain time period. An example might be a student that's trying to pass an exam and they don't pass an exam. You want to get done, you want to graduate, and the anger and the frustration that comes from not being able to do that yet. Anger also comes from injury. When you have a car accident and somebody by mistake drives into you and just feeling hurt and kind of being slowed down, perhaps you got whiplash, and now that was something you didn't have before, that can create anger. Exploitation, and this is something that's really common in the workplace, isn't it? When you feel that your colleagues, or usually more commonly your bosses or boss, is taking advantage of you, that they're just dishing out things to you that they could be dishing out to everyone else, but you're the one that gets it done all the time. So the more you do, the more they just tend to dish out to you, and you feel exploited, you're feeling taken advantage of. So your boundaries are not intact. That can really feel anger and also lead to a lot of illness in the workplace. A lack of attention. So anger can be as a result of kind of being in a partnership, being in a relationship, and actually not getting enough attention. Even as an adult, you could feel you don't get enough attention from your parents, or you don't get enough attention from your partners. Envy and jealousy can also spark a lot of anger. Okay, if you feel your partner might be interested in somebody else, or showing somebody else a bit more attention that you don't feel is inappropriate attention, or kind of just at work having coffees or work drinks with a colleague that just doesn't sit with you, that can evoke a lot of anger. And then there's also compassionate anger. When you see that somebody else is kind of going through a difficult time, or somebody else has been treated unfairly, that can arise in you a very kind of compassionate type of anger. Okay, so as we see with anger, it is very powerful. It is a very powerful emotion where you can hit a very dangerous zone. And as we know that, there are so many domestic violence cases. I don't know what the statistics are for the rest of the world, but I know in Australia the statistics are very high for domestic violence. And if we look at that, that comes from as a result of anger. It comes as a result of this kind of pent-up, built-upness, okay? And I was listening to a podcast by Rick Warren just a few days ago, and it was so true what he said. He said you need 3 conditions for anger, right? You need fuel, so you need this energy that's bubbling. You need containment, which means you need enclosed environments. So if you think about your home, just being in your home all the time. In Australia, we had quite a bit of lockdown with the COVID situation and isolation. So you think about the people that are in that contained space, and then you just need a flint. You just need a trigger, a fuel to ignite it. And if you look at that, there's your combination for a splurge of anger. There is your combination for domestic violence. There is your reason for rage, right? So you just need some fuel, some energy, a contained environment, and a spark, which is the trigger, just that last straw. So if we think about that in homes, how often and what is the probability of that happening? Having some fuel, having things built up, you've got anger inside of you that's welling. How many people have that? Most people. You're in your home, you're in a confined space, so you're feeling trapped, and then you get triggered. It can happen so easily, okay? And that's why it is so important, and we'll hear this over and over, if something's on your mind and something's working on you, it is so dangerous not to put it out there. And this is one of the main reasons, because the volcanic eruption will happen. Lava builds, and if lava doesn't come out, it builds to a dangerous level. And that's where you've got to be very careful about thinking about yourself in asking some really pertinent questions. And some good questions to ask yourself is, what is it about the situation that I really value and feel could be damaged? It's important to actually put that in writing to yourself. Ask yourself that question. And ask yourself, let's suppose I change the situation. What does this say about my future? Okay, and what am I saying about me if this, the source of this anger, happens? Am I drawing a negative conclusion about myself? What am I saying about the other person? What motives am I reading into his or her actions? In what way does this situation hurt me? And in what ways could this situation possibly help me? Okay, so what do I need to share? And how can I share what I'm feeling and summarize it in one sentence? And sometimes just getting that sentence and just acknowledging that sentence to yourself helps your brain to feel less lost and less confused, because it's not feeling totally out of control, because it's finally come to the resolution. So I'm going to ask that of you. If you find there's anger welling in you, try write down a sentence and say, right, what is this anger about? Let me try summarize what this anger is about in one sentence and put that sentence out there. There's going to be such relief just in that first step of putting that sentence out there. Okay, I hope that you will try that, because my hope is that we're going to have less lava bubbling around internally in everybody, because anger does so much damage to the body. And we'll look at that in another talk, the effects of anger in the body and the symptoms and the side effects. But for now, I just wish you well, and I hope you can write your sentence to help you have more access to tranquility and calmness. Take care.